entertaining us with his photos that we just love. First of all, the archives. We have our ornaments that we have. Last year we did the Thorn Building. This year it's the library. They're for sale. Kathy has them back there. They're $15 for one or $25 for two. They make great gifts, you know, hostess gifts, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, anytime you want to go someplace and you need to give somebody something, these are always, if they're from Millbrook, people love them.
And also I have to interject that there's Sally Gifford O'Brien's drawings that we've incorporated in them. And as you know, over the years, she drew just about everything that stood still. And so we've inherited those, and she's so pleased that we're using them.
Okay, and the other thing is we have books. These are from the Poughkeepsie Journal, compliments of John Flanagan. These are $10 a piece. And so if anybody is interested in buying the books, West Point and The Legend on the Hudson, and the other one is Democracy and Duchess. Okay, and they'll be over on the table, but anybody can buy one of the books. We have others. I have more out in my car and sell out what we have. Our next meeting will be November 21st, and that Jonathan Boyce will be doing. Jonathan, where are you? Oh, right there. You want to talk about it? You want to say something?
I wasn't prepared to.
Okay. All right. A couple other things. I don't know how many of you are on Will Tatum's site and get sent out information on things that are going on in Dutchess County. There's a big anti-slavery project that's being done next Wednesday, October 23rd. The head of the National Program Manager for the Underground Railroad is going to be doing a program at the Wallace Center at 7 o'clock. It's on the 23rd. And then Pine Plains is having the Evergreen Cemetery Tour, where they actually have people dressed up in reenactment and doing the cemetery tour. And that's this weekend, I think at 7 o'clock. But those are things that are on Will Tatum's website, so if you want to go on there. And David, you want to talk about the...
As many of you know and have volunteered, every year...
Come closer, you need to be in the middle.
Every year we have a tour, walking tour of the village with 7th graders. And we have volunteers at various Museum in the Street signs, and you all know those throughout the village. And the students will come from one sign to another and find out about local history. And the assignment that they have is, once they've taken the tour, their job is to take their parents on the tour. And that way it promotes local history and involvement for it. And it's a really easy assignment. For those of you who've already volunteered, thank you so much. But because of a couple of conflicts, we have one site that we don't have covered. So if anyone would like to do it, it's basically 10:45 to 12:30. And it's easy enough. You stand by the sign, and the kids have to read the sign, and there's going to be something in the sign that is picked out that they have to recognize. Like the tribute garden. Who owned the original property? Okay, they'll read the sign. Yes, we know that, but the students don't. So they have to read the sign. Go, oh, the thorns, bingo. So every single sign has that kind of simple clue for the 7th graders. They take ownership from it, and it's a lot of fun. So once again, we need another volunteer. So if you think you'd like to do it, let me know.
I'll be glad to do it.
Excuse me?
I'll be glad.
Tomorrow. So it's 10:40.
Who's a volunteer, but somebody else did.
So, John, you said you would be able to do it?
He's got a 11 o'clock doctor's appointment tomorrow. Spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
No, it's school children. So it's Friday, it's a school trip.
You could do it.
No, because the kids are in school, they literally have the morning sessions at the school, and then they start the walking tour at 10:45. that last until 12:30, and then they take their bag lunch up to the tribute garden.
Karen,
So if you'd like to do it, it's really fun. Just see me at the end, and I'll give you the information. It's a lot of fun and very easy. So,
David, did you, which sign?
which sign, it's sign number 12, and I've got it in the book for you to see. And it's basically the Rituno building.
Number 10.
Number 10 on it. It's easy enough talking about the stonework. And why that is so important is, for all of you who are Italian, you know this already, and most of you who have heard our presentations know this already. But so many of the Italian families build buildings using stones. And once they see that detail, like the Ritunos, there are a number of stonemasons that were in the families. And even if you were a baker, you get a job lugging those stones to put those buildings together. And once the kids see the Rituno building, see the stonework, they can walk through the village and go, oh, Italian, oh, Italian, oh, Italian, oh, Italian, because it's so distinctive. And that's part of the joy of taking ownership. So the teacher in me loves a captive audience, but Diane said not to talk to me. So.
all right, I don't think there's anything more. We do have a program committee meeting. Okay, so just a minute. Program committee meeting on October 30th. We went through one time, we had our first meeting, and we came up with 7 definites. We haven't pinned down to what month they're going to be, and we need 2 more. So we're still brainstorming ideas. So if anybody is interested, we will be at Merritt Bookstore 4 o'clock on the 30th. Susan?
I was just going to mention the idea of doing our programs perhaps in January and February during the daytime.
Okay, yeah, we talked about doing the programs for the cold months anyway at the library on a Saturday afternoon, morning, and we wondered if any of you would be interested in doing that instead of having them on a Thursday evening. So if you have any comments you want to, you can come back and just tell the committee or any of the officers or any of us if you think that would work. You want to show of hands? Sure.
Show of hands.
How many would be interested in having them on the winter months anyway, in the afternoon on a Saturday? At the library, yeah. Okay, thank you. Looks like a majority. All right, I'm going to turn the program over to John now. All of you know him. He's our resident photographer. He ran the Corner News forever, and we all miss it.
Well, to begin with, thank you very much for the invitation.
Does anyone want the other light on?
Program.
Okay.
One, I was reading the announcement
No.
paper, and it said John Kading,
Okay, what's?
No
the
light.
village of Millbrook
Yeah, no light.
in pictures.
I gotta get these.
And I was wondering, and I was going through all my thousands of slides, and maybe another 2,000 pictures of all the people that I got pictures of. And as I looked through this, over half the people we have married. That's what bothers me. I'm 91 years old, and I'm good health, and I'm always glad to show my slides, which are many. And I lost my wife 3 years ago, and I thought I'd start the program with a picture of my wife. We were married 62 years. And have 3 children, 10 grandchildren. So anyway, getting on to business at hand, I want to show the picture. Huh?
Louder.
Louder?
Yes.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
They're all cutting names.
I always love to take it and start my program with this picture here of this 47 Plymouth four-door sedan, which was our police officers. It was parked at the traffic light, and day after day, he was there, 7 days a week,
You never knew when.
starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. He was crossing the kids to go across the street. And at night, he was usually there to help the kids go across the street going home. And also, what was a wonderful part, he was very much in the process of buying the first ambulance that we purchased in the village of Millbrook. And between him and me, we took almost all the calls. Either somebody would call him, or they'd call G.D. Stranahan, who was the answering service for the village of Millbrook. We had a fire, they called G.D. Stranahan, and she was the one that blew the blue whistle at the firehouse. And when we had an ambulance call, she would call Cunningham, where we had a group of 15, possibly 20 volunteer ambulance drivers. The picture you see there in the car is my sister's Nash Rambler.
By the brand new.
She always treasured, and it was a great car. And it was a dealership that Greer, Chrysler, Rick Greer had. And then he got the Toyota franchise. This is the right on the corner with the green.
Bobby's fine sign.
There's Mr. Cunningham sitting on the corner. An old car going through. We had many antique cars going through Millbrook, and it was so interesting to have an antique car show. And I can remember 40, maybe 50 antique car shows. And these people would come and park their cars, and we had the show, and everybody parked up at the Silver Horn restaurant, which is now Charlotte's. Very successful.
Daddy, I just want to make a point out with that picture. That's even before the Grand Union's built, right? There's what was in that spot where sports and Grand Union is now. Go back to that picture. I'm just curious.
Car lot.
What was car lot? Oh, that's right. You did tell me that, Daddy. It was a used car lot. I'm sorry. I think it was a used car lot.
Now, you're looking at Washington Grange here, and Wiltsey Brothers. Whenever I seen that loser in front of the house or one of the buildings, I know it was coming down. And that's a picture of Eddie Magiacomo. I hope all you remember Eddie Magiacomo had the first liquor store in Millbrook. And I can't go by without taking a picture of Washington Grange when I lived upstairs at the corner news. That's my son Johnny and his brother. They're getting ready for school. And that's the start of taking the building down. What was so interesting about Washington Grange, my sister was a master back in the 60s. And the great thing about Washington Grange, they had a member like Grace Briggs. And Grace Briggs, every election day, we put on a dinner
Casserole.
casserole or whatever, and then you end up with maybe 50, maybe 75 members and family come and have supper after they vote.
What is the church
Republican.
that they're tearing down?
And that's a
And there
picture
she
of
was
Grace
watching
Briggs.
it. God bless her. But she felt like that.
Grace Briggs was a member of our church, the Lyle Federated Church. She used to play the piano for us, and she was just a great, great person.
That's parking lot.
And this is where they lived.
I know it was. You got it taken.
I don't know if
Just take it
some of
down.
you people remember this. This is the Sutherland, they called it the Sutherland House. This
It's where
was,
George T. Whalen is now.
Oh.
That house now.
Beautiful.
and anyway,
back.
this is the building they think, and when Sutherland moved out, they just bought a house up above the avenue. And the ending result, this building was blocked by Mr. Whalen. And naturally, what happened is, it was torn down. And that's a picture of Charlie Marshall, who had his estate up on 343. Right. And they owned the gift shop, the Millbrook gift shop for quite a few years. And here's the first guy up there is George Whalen III. And then Paul Hurley, Bob Flanagan, Mr. Sargent, and Mr. Skidmore. Mr. Skidmore used to write the column in the Millbrook Round Table. And all different, just a regular column, and passed on different things he's seen. And one of them was, the fact I seen John Kading's car with a nice woman in it. That's the kind of stuff that he used to write in his paper. And that's a picture with Mr. Whalen. That's it, it's the only one I have up here. This is when they were taking down the house.
Garage is still standing.
What?
The garage is still standing.
Yeah, the
today.
garage is still standing. Now, this here is the Thornton estate, the Thornton Mansion. And that goes way, way back to 1700, when that was built. And another one. And what is so beautiful about this, we lived on the estate, my father, when he came to America in 1925. And my mother came in 1927 from Germany. And they lived in Dover Plains. And he worked on his sister's farm. And while he was at my sister's farm, Briggs came and delivered a new tractor to my uncle's place. And he said, by the way, Ernest, they're looking for a tractor man on this estate. Go see about it. So my father went, and they hired him on the spot. Because he's a graduate in Germany. They learn a trade before they leave school. They get out of school at 16 years of age, usually. And he was a machinist. So with being known tractors and known a machine, he was hired And he started the 1st of April in 1933. And I was, when we moved there, April 1st, like I said, 1933. And in June and September, I started kindergarten. The only bad part about starting school was the fact the whole time that I'm growing up, I didn't speak any English, it was always German. My father would give me the devil and always scolded me in German. So consequently, I got over that and got to talking and singing and other things. This always makes an interesting picture. The whole garden in Thorndale, I just hope someday they will open that so people can still walk through it like I did. And I can remember when I was about 12 years old, 13 years old, Mr. Strobel, who was the garden superintendent at the time, came to the, there must have been about 7 or 8 of us that lived in Thorndale at the time. He says, here, we want all you kids to come because we're going to have a garden show this weekend. And Lanny Ross, who lived in Stapleton at the time, was one of the guests at that show, sang some songs, played piano and whatever, and they had a wonderful time. But the tree, that is an old oak tree, and claims it's over 250 years old. They would have tree people come in every year to take out the dead branches, and wherever it was cracking, they would put cement in there to keep the tree alive. And it finally ended up about 10 years ago, the whole thing just fell all apart. And it was all used up in the fireplace. Skip, you know where that is?
Anybody guess? Yeah, that's Millbrook.
In the street. Crazy thing about this, Wilsey Brothers was brought in here to look at this.
Demolished.
They're going to take it down. And he was told not to tell Kading that it was taking it down.
So
And
that's about
believe
the
it or
only
not,
thing he doesn't have a picture.
it took them a day and a half, and they had the whole thing all piled up and thing, and they would take care of it away. But it was such a shame. But from what I understand, and this is what my daughter and I were just talking about when we were going through this, they ripped that down and got the appraisal renewed. So they took all the money that they had to maintain the garden. So the garden is still as beautiful today as it was when they lived there. These are some more pictures of the street with the stones. And all flowers planted in between the stones. And here's Bennett College.
The good old
days. That was always our prize, was Bennett College. The great thing is, we moved, when my father was farm superintendent, they moved to a new house. And the house was just on the other side of the Bennett College. And what is amazing, I can remember when I was in the store, back in 1947, I took it over. In 1948, we got a new professor in college. He introduced himself to me, and he said, Mr. Kading, we would love to have you come and talk to the new girls at Bennett about running the store. You're only 19 years old, and how did you get into it and so forth? So consequently, yes, I'll go. So there was about 15 or maybe 20 girls in the class. And the interesting part, and I never realized it, if you ever looked at the slogan that Bennett College has for the girls, is the fact that behind every successful man is a woman. And that woman is saying, no, you can't do that. But that wasn't the case with me.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, Marilyn and I got married in 55, and one of the things we always discussed what was going on. But that's one of my prized pictures is Technicolor. And this was the dormitories. This is when they built up from 100, they had 110 or 120 girls. And then when they built the addition on and new dormitories and everything else, and they got up to 200. And then a few years later, it was closed. That was the president's house.
Your guess is what that is?
You know what that is? Fire department. This is looking at it from another side. This is the Millbrook Hotel,
Where the firehouse is.
which is now where the firehouse is.
It's now where the firehouse is.
And what's so interesting, this hotel was built after the railroad was built. And the Millbrook,
So no firehouses now.
where the firehouse is. And what's interesting about it is that they ripped it down and there's another picture of the house.
I'm in the
And the
wagon.
train used to come in, and these people used to stay in the hotel when they were visiting friends in Millbrook. That's my father there, and that's Diane and
In the
Mike,
wagon.
and our little daughter. Brian,
Yeah.
there's the ward, France. When they first got it, it was parked in front of the Corner News, and this was Walter Burkhart, who was a photographer, and had a photographer's place right across the street from him. And I think this is one of the few pictures I have of Mrs. Partial, who is the Thorne daughter. The Thorne family had two daughters. One was Chancellor, and the other one was Mrs. Partial. And that's John Murtaugh, who was the mayor of Millbrook. And this was a dedication of the building to
She paid for it, right?
good old Millbrook Fire Department. Does anybody recognize that building? Well, that is the building where the Grand Union is now. There was Dr. White, who had an office there. And he lived there.
You don't have that taken down? You don't have a picture of that being down? Where they demolished that? Missed that one, Daddy?
That's another picture of that house. And this is the old.
Was that Dr. White's house, Johnny?
Yeah.
Dr. White's house, wasn't it?
What?
Was that Dr. White's house?
Dr. White's house, yes.
But I'm asking, you doesn't have a picture of it, that taken down?
Where was
Huh?
that? Where was that?
That's Tony Frinzel and John Murtaugh, Ernie Safari, and Mr. Brenner. Used to meet the park. I don't know who that little kid is. Anybody recognize him?
Oh, I know Stewart's.
And that's Stewart's. Anybody remember that? Millbrook Theater.
That's Pickles Paradise.
That's Pickles. Crazy thing is, John Miller took this over, bought this building, or I should say John Haynes, through John Miller, who's working for him. The building that sits right next to it, you can see the porch, was Earl Cunningham, our police officer's house. And he sold that house to Johnny Miller, and it became a parking lot for his career. And that was the replacement of the Millbrook Theater. And that's another picture. And that's taking down the house next door.
Which house is that?
That's Earl Cunningham's house.
Oh,
That's
okay, you did
the
that.
house that was.
Moore's Hat Shop.
How about this here? Anybody recognize
Moore's
that?
Hat Shop.
Millbrook Diner, and that's Moore's Hat Shop. They were always busy at Easter time. Wasn't always getting new mats. And the lady that lived in there, she was always my first customer in the afternoon to pick up the kitchen things. She'd come in and she'd know more going on in the village than anybody I ever.
More than you,
My
John?
mother took over.
And that's Ralph O'Ready for anybody.
At Lower Drugstore.
He had the Lower Drug Store, and Vincent Pharmacy was at the Company Avenue. There were two drugstores.
Between the bank and Bridges.
And that's also another house that was taken down and became a parking lot.
Oh, look at that.
Now this was the Knights of Columbus, and it goes all the way back to the Friends Church. At one time in the village of Millbrook, there were 7 thriving churches going. And one by one, they were all taken down and moved into a parking lot.
Daddy, tell everybody where this was, because it never, I just heard this weekend. Tell Daddy where this is. Where was the Knights of Columbus? Tell people where it is. Parking lot for the Millbrook Library now.
Yeah, well, that's the parking lot
I
now
just
for
found
the
that out.
Millbrook
I just
Library.
found that out. Yeah. I never knew that.
Now, this is interesting, it's the AMD store. And again, back in early days, in the early 60s, 50s, there were about 7 grocery stores. The interesting thing about this here, this is the D.A. Birch department store. And
St.
He
Goggins.
sold it to Mr. Goggin. And they used to sell all the school books.
Yep.
We went there to buy school books. Geez, in September. And how my father used to bellyache about that. You think that you go to public school, you get furnished school, your books. But that wasn't the case. But it's unfortunate, there was a few years, maybe another 8 or 10 years, it became that the school furnishes the books.
Johnny Monroe.
I love it. There's, Johnny started that Malona Market. He went to work there for Mr. Dean. And I went to work for John Tilsley. And after 2 years of working for John Tilsley, he gave me the offer to buy the store. Well, John didn't get the opportunity to buy out Mr. Dean. I think 5 or 6 years later, he bought it. And then Buddy, his brother, came to work at the store also. How many remember Carol's drugstore? This used to be the post office. My sister worked at the post office. Greatest thing, all the post offices all had mailboxes. And we had a mailbox there. We went in and we turned the combination to the right numbers. And it would open up and we could take your mail out. Within maybe 2 years, they went out of business. Murphy's Five and Dime, and there's the IGA store, which is owned by Jimmy Dunn. And Jimmy Dunn, maybe you people remember, might know, but Jimmy Dunn was the fire chief 2 or 3 years. And the ambulance. And every once in a while when we had the ambulance, I'd get a call to go. And I'd call Bobby Cole, who worked at Millbrook Supply. I said, Bobby, we got an ambulance call, and I called 2 or 3 other people, but they can't go. So consequently, he went. And sometimes I'd be gone for 2, maybe 3 hours on one call. I did that for 30 people. Millbrook Supply Company was owned by the Wicker family. They used to sell guns.
Toys.
And then the more and more he got he had a toy department upstairs. And now we're back into
Street guns, right?
my
Right there,
territory.
Your corner.
The interesting thing about when I took over the store, it was people asking for something. And I said, no, I don't have that. And then I got to more and more. Then I said, Jesus, what am I missing up on? So I started to listen to what customers were asking for. And believe it or not, one of the reasons, you see there's 2 telephone booths out front. I did that right after, almost right after I took over the store. I Pawtucket Telephone Company. They came and put one booth in there. But that one booth was so busy, they said, Mr. Kading, according to our number, you need another booth in here. So they came and put the second booth in. And now, nobody uses it. But I just want to pass on, I think the one thing that makes business successful is a person that listens to his customers and tries to fill the need. And that's what the key is. So anyway, what was really outstanding, you see all the roping around the telephone, Christmas trees, the lights, it was all a community deal.
You and Bill
Now,
Hart.
Mr. Strobel, who was the garden superintendent in Thorndale, he made all the roping. He came to me and he said, Johnny, you take and put nice ropes around there, and we'll put the lights in there, and it just dresses up the whole store. And it wasn't too many years later that more and more stores in the village did the Christmas lights, which we still do today.
Oh, is that Mom standing in front there? I couldn't see.
Yeah, this one.
Before it's over.
Now, this is interesting. I remodeled the store 7 different times. We added on to it. But anyway, the last time I did it, we put all the windows in this side here. This was always a wall. And I can never forget, we had all those things, had a new window put in. Catherine Tracy, who was a school nurse at the time, they would come for lunch. They'd go to the social club
Sotero.
for lunch. And I'll never forget, she came out of the social club, got in the car, raced the motor, backed up. She was parked right in front of the restaurant. But she backed up, and just backed right up, and smashed right into my window.
At least she didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
That's Louis Belletri there, standing looking at it. But anyway, she didn't get hurt or nothing.
And she didn't hurt anybody
She
else.
silvered up, I think, pretty quick. You know, this makes for a good picture. This is one of the early pictures when I first took over. That's all morning glories, all played along that fence. And I'll never forget, I had all the things, and they were all in bloom, beautiful. And somebody came into the store and said, Mr. Kading, do you mind if we take some of the morning glory seeds?
During Tim Leary's.
No, you go ahead, help yourself. But I didn't know at the time it was morning glory seed that was Timothy Leary's LSD. And that's the story behind it. So I didn't wait any morning glory.
There he is, here I am, showing you half naked again.
This, believe me, is a treasure, that this one here. There's Larry Bartell, Joe Magnorella, and I forget the other two there. I think, who else? But that's Diane and the Sutherland boy.
I think that's Billy.
Okay.
I think that's Billy.
No, my brother.
What's the name of the dog?
Taffy. Taffy was her first,
You
it was a
remember?
puppy, I guess, when they got it when I was little.
That's Skipper Leach and Grace Briggs. And the woman that's down on this thing is Rice-Dorf. Maiden name was
Naughty
Rice-Dorf.
isn't it?
She married Malawi, yeah. That's a gatehouse too, in Wigan State. Skip, you remember that? That's the
That was the
elementary
elementary
school.
school, wasn't it?
That's the elementary school, which was torn down, and that's where the middle school.
I didn't go there, I went to Verbright School.
Oh, that's right.
Me too.
That was taken from Elm Drive?
I can remember this here, when that was built, this little building here, was a barber shop.
And there was the townhouse. I don't know what
Townhouse.
Yeah, townhouse, I just.
That's Tilsley's house.
Yeah, it was originally the Tilsley house. Tilsley built it. And then they had the Millbrook Round Table, was right in the back building with the presses and stuff. Matter of fact, in my collection of things, I have about 4 years of Millbrook Round Tables. And honest to God, here's one I just came across. We lost Mrs. Parshall, she died back in 1978. It was in the Round Table. Federated Church. Now this, as far as I'm concerned, was still the biggest and the most successful doing ever, the concerts on Bennett College. And that's Grant Ball in the front there. And there's Dash Safari, Ernie Safari, some of the leaders. And sometimes I'd say, I think we had in the neighborhood of anywhere from 800 to 1,000 people. Bands would come from Danbury, Connecticut, all the way from Boston to competition. It was a competitive band. Joan fantastic.
Oh,
That's my daughter Diane.
I remember that day like yesterday. I was at school, a horse hunt thing Daddy told
The
me.
big thing about the ambulance, every hunt, when they had the Millbrook hunt, the ambulance was available. Either we sat in the thing and watched the horses jump, or whatever. And that's what I'm,
Daddy,
this was
do you
at
remember-
Millbrook School. They had a competition there.
Daddy, did anybody need the ambulance because it was there? I'm just curious, because it was such a great caution, but I wonder if it was ever needed.
there's Joe, that's Joe right there.
There's Joe, and then that's Chubby Wicker and Bobby Cole.
Is that Merv from Lower Ground Table? Merv, that guy with the gray hair, Daddy, behind Bobby Cole? Is that from Lower Ground Table?
Now you recognize Dr. Lamantino? That's Mrs. Marola. David Hammond and his white. And this was at the Millbrook Questing Center. George Girth, he was our mayor quite a few years. And he's prepared breakfast for the Masonic breakfast, which was always held the first Sunday after Easter. And when I say I was one of the guys that poured coffee, we all did in age. And the interesting thing is, we had any neighborhood of anywhere from 600 to 800 master masons all attend this. They usually had the Grand Master of the state of New York come and speak to us. One year, we had the Grand Master of the state of Connecticut come and talk to us about what Mason is all about. I think there's close to 100 people there. And this was held here in the Ford Building. And I can remember the whole auditorium was full. Tables.
Cafeteria in the basement.
And downstairs in the foyer, tables, and then there was foyers and the thing to see everybody. And at the end, the speaker came on the stage to introduce something on the episode. Go back, and that's the motor station. It was originally a Shell gas station, and Ray Langford was the owner of that. Or I should say he's the leaser. And I can remember as a kid coming around, and they were going to replace the gas tanks that were in the front. And I remember hey, John, that picture's backwards.
I know, he tried to fix it, I think. He tried, and it just keeps coming that way, so I'm not sure what he did when he put it in there.
I'm trying to figure out where that was. Mobile spelled backwards. That slide is in backwards. But I wish to tell about, they're gonna replace the gas tanks. And they had the gas tanks all, dug up, around and ready to go. And they put the tractors down, and they had it roped up to bring it up. And the whole crane bring it dumped over and went right through the roof of that thing. And that was the end of that. But they had to get a bigger crane to remove.
That's for insurance, I hope.
That's a beautiful picture.
Do you remember where it was, Dad? We just figured out where it was. We couldn't figure it out.
God, I can't think of what his name is. He was a member of the lodge too.
Where do you think it was, Daddy? Maybe somebody here can remember where it was. 343 or something, did you say? No?
The interesting thing about this here, I remember, was the Johnson family. Johnson came from Scotland, and they lived in Millbrook. And he applied for a job, and he was a groundskeeper. And I dated his daughter. Now, does anybody remember cleaning the windows for your kids? That's Al Stacy, who owned the GLF feed store, and Mr. Dunn, who worked for Murtaugh Ford.
That's
And the
next.
crazy thing is, when the kids always got out of school, they could paint a window, and they assigned a window to each kid that wanted to paint. And unfortunately, the second year we did it, we didn't do it no more, because they used black paint to paint on the glass. Unfortunately, the black swelled the thing.
Oh, it's
broke
the
the
heat,
windows.
expansion of the heat.
It was the heat. And this here's adopted highway, and we pick up all the garbage along the road. That's another one, that's Phyllis Carl, her father owned the Murphy's, or the Five and Dime store. This always makes for interesting picture. This is a team of horses going through, and they used to travel across the United States. Start off in the middle of the state and then drive all the way around. Who remembers him?
Daddy, who is that?
That's
I know it's Buddy Morona.
Dr. Mahoney. Edwards. That's Buddy Mahoney.
Okay.
I went to Greater.
That's Sam Morrison, Bob McNabb, and Judge D. And that was the celebration of the opening of the firehouse. That was my little pickup truck. High school. Church. And that's the VFW office, meeting place on the right there.
That was one of our family reunions at the town park, at the town pool.
That's my two cousins. The one died died about 2 years ago. And then the other one, the other two that are standing up with those guys. And that's my father playing the harmonica, which he taught me how. And that's Carmine Nardone. He at one time owned the diner. Mr. Seppi, and that's Al White. He had a dairy farm on Valley Farm Road, and he bring the milk in a tractor. It was a rainy day, hurricane, and they used to bring it to Murtaugh's truck. And they used to take it and fix it. Now, who do you think that is? Does anybody recognize him? That's Monsignor Caldwell.
Bishop
Dave
something.
with the hat,
It was
right.
Bishop something, is it Bishop Sheen?
The other one
He
must be
married Frank Matano and his wife. His wife was the secretary for him. And he came to Millbrook and he was married in St. Joseph's Church. And those two girls are Louis Electrics. That's Bill Howe, and Ray Lake. I don't hear you say nothing, Diane.
My mother dressed me up so much. That's so cute. Like a doll. Oh, that's Johnny.
That's my daughter Diane is over there, and that's Johnny. He's not here, is he? And with that, I end my talk.
We did have the other carousel had Dynamite Joe, and I just want to say, I don't know if the presentation should just be on people like Dynamite Joe. Like, I don't know if, I just want to honor them somehow. It just, they have Glooch, remember Glooch?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, these people wouldn't, Dad wouldn't been able to do the store without me.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks, John.
And one last reminder, if you are going to be part of the 7th grade tour tomorrow, make sure you bring a chair, because it's going to be about 2 hours, and you'll be able to sit in between the students coming through. So don't forget a chair, I want you to be comfortable.
There's refreshments back there for anybody who wants them, and remember our meeting on November 23rd.
I got mine.